Stop being dramatic, Lucy. You are killing the vibe. Jessica has been planning this outfit for months. We are at the concert. Call an Uber for the kids. I read those words on my phone screen through a haze of pain while lying on a trauma stretcher, bleeding internally. I had begged them to watch my 3-year-old twins before I was wheeled into emergency surgery. I stared at the screen waiting for them to realize I was dying. Instead the screen went gray. Message not delivered. They had blocked my number. My parents blocked their dying daughter so my medical updates wouldn't interrupt their night out. The nurse grabbed my hand. We have to go. Now. I looked at her, tears finally spilling over, and whispered, I don't have anyone. Be honest with me. If you were bleeding out and your parents blocked you to watch a concert, would you ever speak to them again? Drop a yes or a no in the comments. I need to know if I'm the crazy one here. I woke up in the recovery room with the taste of anesthesia in my mouth and a clarity I had never felt before. I didn't cry. I didn't ask the nurse if my parents had called. I knew they hadn't. I asked for my phone. My hand was still trembling from the medication, but my resolve was absolute steel. I opened my banking app. There it was, pending for the first of the month. $3,500. A transfer labeled family support. It stared at me like an insult. I didn't hesitate. I didn't think about how they would pay their bills. I just pressed cancel. Then I went down the list. The auto pay for my mother's health insurance. Cancelled. The lease payment for Jessica's luxury SUV. Cancelled. The country club membership fees I had been covering since my father retired. Cancelled. From a hospital bed with tubes still in my arm, I systematically dismantled their entire lifestyle. I didn't feel guilty. I felt like a surgeon cutting out a tumor that had been killing me for years. 3 days later, I was back in my quiet apartment. My twins were asleep, safe with the nanny I had paid triple to hire because my family couldn't be bothered. I sat at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. I pulled up the spreadsheet I had secretly kept for 8 years. I don't know why I kept it. Maybe deep down I always knew this reckoning was coming. I scrolled to the bottom. The number made me physically nauseous. $450,000. I stared at that number. $450,000. That is a house. That is a retirement fund. That is a life. I looked at the line items. While I was eating ramen and working double shifts during my fellowship, I was paying for their renovations. While I was driving a dented sedan with 2 car seats in the back, I was paying off Jessica's Range Rover. I had stripped my own life down to the bone to keep them warm, and they had left me to bleed out in a trauma center. I used to wonder why they never said thank you. I used to wonder why, when I transferred thousands of dollars, I barely got a thumbs up emoji in response. But sitting there in the silence, I finally understood the equation. I had been doing the math wrong my whole life. To a normal person, $450,000 is a life-changing gift. But to a narcissist, that money wasn't a gift. It was rent. In their minds, I owed them that money simply for the privilege of being born. I was paying a monthly subscription fee just to be their daughter, while Jessica held a lifetime VIP pass for free. They didn't appreciate the money because they believed they were entitled to it. They believed my survival was a debt I had to pay off in monthly installments. I closed the laptop with a snap. I had spent 8 years trying to buy their love. But the bank was officially closed. And I knew exactly what would happen when the first check bounced. 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of silence. I checked my phone logs just to be sure. Not a single call to the hospital front desk. Not a single inquiry to my colleagues to ask if I had survived the surgery. The silence wasn't an accident. It was a statement. They were punishing me. They were waiting for me to come crawling back, apologizing for ruining their concert night with my medical emergency. But when the first of the month came and went, the silence broke. Not because they were worried about my health, but because the rent was late. Since I had blocked their numbers, they couldn't reach me digitally. So they got creative. I went back to the hospital for my post-op checkup and stopped by my locker to grab my stethoscope. There was a creamy, expensive-looking envelope taped to the metal door. My mother's handwriting. For a split second, a foolish, childish part of me thought maybe it's a get-well card. Maybe they woke up. I tore it open. There was no card. No, get well soon. Just a printout of a bank notification showing a failed transfer, and a sticky note attached to it. The note read, "There is a glitch with the account. Fix it immediately. Jessica's lease payment is due on the 5th and she is incredibly stressed. Do not make this difficult." I stood there in the locker room smelling the antiseptic and floor wax, and I started to laugh. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the sound of the final shackle breaking. They didn't even ask if I was back at work. They just assumed I was alive enough to process a wire transfer. That evening a friend sent me a link. "Don't watch this if you're not ready," the text said. It was a TikTok video from Jessica. There she was, bathed in the soft glow of a ring light, wiping away a perfectly placed tear. The caption read, "When you have to cut off toxic family members to protect your peace. It's just really hard," Jessica whispered to the camera, her voice trembling. "When you love someone but they become so negative and unstable that they start ruining your mental health. You have to draw a line. I'm just trying to stay strong." The comments were full of support. "You're so brave, Queen, and toxic people don't deserve you." I watched it 3 times. Toxic. That was their word for unprofitable. I wasn't a person to them anymore. I was a broken appliance that had stopped dispensing cash. Seeing that video didn't hurt me. It healed me. It killed the last tiny microscopic cell of guilt I had left in my body. Any hesitation I had about what I was planning to do vanished. If they wanted a villain, I would give them one. But I wouldn't be the kind that screams on TikTok. I would be the kind that brings receipts. I needed a venue. Not just any venue, but a stage big enough for the truth. And then my phone rang. It was Uncle Vincent. In our family, Uncle Vincent is a myth. He's my father's older brother, a retired corporate litigator who made a fortune tearing apart dishonest CEOs in courtrooms. He lives in Newport, Rhode Island, and the rest of the family is terrified of him. They spend their lives trying to impress him, hoping for an invite to his estate, desperate for his validation. He's the hammer. And he had heard about the accident. "Lucy," his voice was deep and gravelly. "I heard you had a little trouble." "That's one way to put it," I said. "I also heard your parents were too busy shaking it off at a concert to visit you." I paused. "How did you know?" "I still have friends in low places. And I saw Jessica's little video." Toxic family. Interesting choice of words. He let out a short, dry laugh. "Listen to me. I'm throwing a retirement party next month. On my yacht in Newport. The whole family is invited. Your parents have been begging for an invite for years. They think this is their ticket to high society." "I don't think I'm up for a party, Uncle Vincent." "It's not a party, Lucy. It's a court date. And I'm giving you the gavel." He paused, letting the weight of his offer sink in. "I want you to give the family toast. You can say whatever you want. And I'll make sure the microphone is loud." I felt a chill run down my spine. A yacht. My parents, desperate to look wealthy and important in front of Vincent's elite friends. Jessica trying to capture the perfect content for her followers. And me with a microphone. "I'll be there," I said. "Good girl. Bring your evidence. I like a well-prepared witness." For the next week I prepared. I didn't just pack a suitcase, I built a case file. I downloaded the chat logs. I organized the bank statements. I saved the time-stamped hospital admission records. I wasn't going to Newport for revenge. Revenge is emotional. Revenge is messy. I was going for something cleaner. I was going for a public execution of their reputation. I drove up to Newport feeling different. The old Lucy, the one who wanted to be liked, the one who apologized for taking up space, was gone. In her place was someone cold, calm, and ready. I pulled up to the marina and saw the yacht, a gleaming white beast floating on the water. My parents were already there on the dock, posing for photos, looking every inch the wealthy, doting grandparents they pretended to be. They didn't see me. They were too busy fixing their hair. I walked past them, my heels clicking on the wooden planks. "Hello, Mother." "Hello, Father." They spun around. The look on their faces wasn't relief. It was fear. They knew the check hadn't cleared. They knew I had blocked them. But they didn't know what I was going to do next. "Lucy," my father hissed, stepping close. "Don't make a scene. This is Vincent's party. We need to make a good impression." "Don't worry," I said, smiling a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "I'm going to make an impression no one will ever forget." 2 hours before the party I made one stop. It wasn't to a salon. It wasn't to a jeweler. It was to a bank vault in downtown Providence. The safety deposit box slid open with a heavy metallic slide. Inside there was only one envelope. It wasn't thick, but it was heavy. It contained the secret that my parents had buried under 5 years of country club dinners and luxury vacations. I pulled out the document. The paper was yellowing slightly at the edges, but the signatures were crisp in blue ink. At the top in bold letters, "Quitclaim deed." You see, my parents didn't just need monthly rent money from me. 5 years ago their financial house of cards had completely collapsed. My father had made a series of disastrous investments trying to keep up with Uncle Vincent's wealth. They were facing foreclosure. They were facing public humiliation. They came to me, the practical daughter, the reliable one, and they begged. They wept at my kitchen table. They told me they would die of shame if their friends found out they had lost the estate. So I fixed it. I took out a massive loan in my name. I paid off their debts. And in exchange they signed the house over to me. Legally, for the past 5 years, that waterfront mansion hasn't belonged to Gregory and Patricia. It belongs to Lucy. I am the sole owner. I am the landlord. I looked at the document. I remembered how they hugged me that day. You saved us, my mother had sobbed. We'll never forget this. But they did forget. They forgot the moment the check cleared. They went right back to treating me like a servant in a house I owned. They let me pay the mortgage, the taxes, and the repairs, while they played the role of the benevolent lords of the manor. They even had the audacity to ban me from their home if I didn't apologize for ruining their concert night. It was almost funny. They were sitting on a yacht right now, terrified of being embarrassed by a toast, having no idea that they were squatters. They had evicted their daughter, not realizing they had actually evicted their landlord. I reached into my bag and pulled out the second document I had prepared with my lawyer earlier that morning. A 30-day notice to vacate. It was standard. It was legal. And it was irrevocable. I slid both papers into a sleek black folder. I didn't feel malicious. I felt logical. If I was a burden, then I should remove myself completely. And that included removing the roof over their heads that I had been holding up with my own 2 hands. I snapped the folder shut. The time for enabling was over. It was time to collect the rent. The yacht was a floating palace of polished teak and crystal. My parents were in their element, holding court near the champagne tower. My mother was wearing a gown I knew cost more than my first car, laughing that shrill, practiced laugh she saved for people she wanted to impress. My father was puffing on a cigar, nodding sagely as he undoubtedly offered financial advice he wasn't qualified to give. Jessica was posing for selfies by the railing, captioning her life as old money aesthetic. They looked perfect. They looked untouchable. And they had no idea the floor was about to drop out from under them. Uncle Vincent tapped his glass with a silver spoon. The sharp ting-ting-ting cut through the chatter. Attention everyone. His voice boomed. I want to invite my niece Lucy up here to say a few words. She's the one person in this family who actually earned her spot on this boat. My father's smile faltered for a fraction of a second, but he recovered quickly, raising his glass to me. He expected a tribute. He expected me to be the good daughter one last time. I walked to the microphone. I didn't have index cards. I had a remote control. Thank you, Uncle Vincent, I said, my voice steady. My parents have always taught me the value of family. They taught me that family shows up when it matters most. So, I wanted to share a memory of exactly how much they care. I clicked the remote. The massive projection screen behind me, usually reserved for corporate presentations, flickered to life. 2 images appeared side by side. On the left, a hospital admission record. Patient, Lucy Whitmore. Time, 7:14 p.m. Status, critical/internal hemorrhage. On the right, a screenshot of a text message. Sender, Mom. Time, 7:15 p.m. Stop being dramatic. You're killing the vibe. Jessica has been planning this outfit for months. Call an Uber for the kids. The silence on the deck was absolute. It wasn't just quiet, it was a vacuum. I saw the blood drain from my mother's face. I saw the cigar fall from my father's hand, ash scattering on his Italian loafers. Jessica stopped mid-selfie, her phone lowering slowly. The elite crowd of Newports stared at the screen, then at my parents with expressions of pure horror. I almost died that night, I said into the silence. But my mother was right about one thing. I was killing the vibe. I expected them to shrink. I expected them to run. But I forgot who I was dealing with. My mother didn't retreat. She snapped. Her face twisted into a mask of pure, ugly rage. She marched toward me, pushing a waiter aside. "Turn it off," she shrieked. "Turn it off right now. You ungrateful, unstable little liar." She grabbed the microphone stand, trying to wrestle it away. "She's crazy," she screamed to the crowd. "The accident scrambled her brain. She's on painkillers. She's an addict." She pointed a shaking finger at me. "I am reporting you to the medical board tomorrow. I will have your license stripped. You are mentally unfit to be a surgeon. You will never work again." I watched her scream, spittle flying from her lips, and suddenly, I felt a strange sense of calm. In psychology, they call this an extinction burst. It's what happens when you stop feeding a rat pellets for pressing a lever. The rat doesn't just stop pressing. It goes berserk. It attacks the cage. It screams. When a manipulator realizes they have lost control, they don't negotiate. They detonate. They try to burn the whole world down just to see if you will flinch. I didn't flinch. I waited for her to take a breath. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out the black folder. "You can try to take my license, Mom," I said, my voice cutting through her hysterics like a scalpel. "But you're going to have a hard time finding a mailbox." I handed the folder to my father. He opened it, his hands shaking so hard the papers rattled. He saw the quitclaim deed. He saw his signature from 5 years ago, transferring the house to me. He saw the truth they had hidden from everyone. "I'm not the daughter you kicked out," I said, stepping closer so only they could hear the final blow. "I am the landlord you stopped paying. And this is your 30-day notice to vacate." My father looked up at me, his eyes wide with terror. He looked at the mansion on the hill, the symbol of his status, his ego, his life. "Get out of my house," I said. "Class dismissed." I didn't stay to watch them leave. I didn't need to. Uncle Vincent signaled his security team, 2 large men in dark suits who stepped out of the shadows like silent sharks. They didn't drag my parents away. They didn't have to. The humiliation was heavy enough to crush them into submission. My mother was still sputtering, clutching her pearls as if they could protect her from the reality of eviction. My father looked gray, a man whose entire identity had just been repossessed. Jessica tried to storm past me, muttering something about karma, but she stopped when she saw the look on Uncle Vincent's face. It was a look of absolute dismissive finality. They were escorted off the gangway, down the dock, and out of the world they so desperately wanted to belong to. When they were gone, the air on the yacht felt lighter, cleaner. Uncle Vincent walked over to me, took the microphone from my hand, and replaced it with a glass of vintage scotch. He clinked his glass against mine. "That," he said, his voice low and appreciative, "was the best closing argument I have ever seen." The eviction happened exactly 30 days later. I didn't go. I sent a property management team to handle the keys. I heard from neighbors that it was a chaotic affair. Moving trucks blocking the driveway, my mother crying on the lawn, my father arguing over a chandelier he tried to unscrew from the ceiling. They moved into a 2-bedroom condo on the edge of town. It's nice enough, I suppose. But it isn't a mansion. And for people like them, nice enough feels like a prison sentence. Jessica had to sell the Range Rover. Last I heard, she's actually working a retail job because influencing doesn't pay the rent when your sister stops subsidizing your lifestyle. As for me, I didn't move into the mansion. I sold it. I sold it for a profit that cleared every debt I ever had and funded a trust for my twins that will ensure they never have to beg anyone for anything. I bought a house that feels like a home, not a museum. It has a big backyard for the kids and a kitchen where we make pancakes on Saturday mornings without worrying about ruining the vibe. Sometimes, late at night, I think about the money. $450,000. It's a lot to lose. But then I look at my children sleeping safely in their beds, and I realize I didn't lose anything. I paid a ransom. I bought my freedom. I bought my sanity. And honestly, it was a bargain. I stopped buying love and started living free. If you are carrying a burden that isn't yours, put it down today. You don't owe anyone your survival. Share this story if you believe in choosing yourself. And tell me in the comments, what's one boundary you need to set right now?